Shrek is love, Shrek is life, but Shrek's treasure hunt is neither. Also, it's called Shrek Treasure Hunt. Why isn't it Shrek's Treasure Hunt? What? Shrek's Treasure Hunt is a platformer. Kind of. The game was made by a developer called The Code Monkeys, and it was released in 2002. Wait, here are some games that have been released before this game came out. Final Fantasy X, Sly Cooper, Jak and Daxter's. Like, just play these instead. Ugh. These Sly Cooper games are delicious. Though, do you understand what I'm saying? The game was born in the wrong generation. The PlayStation 2 has already been out for 2 years at this point. In fact, there is already a Shrek game that was released on the Xbox and GameCube before this. What? I can at least give the game a bit of credit though. This was part of the publisher's idea to create very, very cheap games for consumers. For example, this game was going for $9.99 on release. Which, I mean, it's like, you pay for what you get, I guess. But at the same time, I don't really think that's a good idea, because if you walk around and go to garage sales, you'll probably find most PS1 games at around like $5, maybe even $3. Though I do want to bring something up before I actually get into the game. I called this a platformer a bit ago. Some people may disagree and say, no, this isn't a platformer. And they're totally fair for thinking that. I believe this is a platformer, but it is a failed 3D platformer. There are just so many platforming mechanics and elements that you see in other types of 3D platformers that are in this game, but it just fails at utilizing every single one of them. Like, this isn't me trying to say something stupid and say something like Sonic Labyrinth is a platformer or something. But I really do think that Shrek's Treasure Hunt is a 3D platformer, but it failed at it. But is this the worst one? Hi, I'm Warren Clubs, and this is the worst platformer ever made, where we play the worst platformers I could find and go through them together. And this time, we're playing Shrek Treasure Hunt. So, like I said before, this is a 3D game, a 3D platformer. The goal of the game is incredibly simple. You run around, collect all the collectibles in an area, and once you do that, you unlock a mini game that you need to play and complete. You need to do this exact scenario 10 times, and you beat the game. Yeah, it's about 1 to 2 hours long. Just watch the Shrek movies instead. Maybe not this one. I think this is one of the few games I've played where the entire game is summarized in one small paragraph, because that's really the entire game. Of course, I'll go more deeper into the game itself and the minigames and the collectibles in a bit, but I want to go over the worlds, as again, it can just be summarized really quickly. There are around 10 areas, and they're all just green. Oh wait, sometimes it's gray, but it's mostly green. There really isn't much variety in what you're doing, which I guess could be a complaint if the game was longer, but again, this game is like a budget game and it's about an hour long. So seeing the same thing for an hour isn't really too bad, but it still would have been better if there was a bit more variety. I mean, I guess there technically is in the minigames, because the minigames look completely different than the rest of the game most of the time, so. But again, those are only in the minigames. But that's pretty much a summary of the entire game. Just run around, get collectibles, do minigames, and you're done in an hour. The music in this game, however, is quite good. Take a listen. This music actually reminded me of a soundtrack from another game I played that's actually a good game, Toy Story Racer. Toy Story Racer is surprisingly a really good racing game. You should try it, and the music is very similar. I decided to look it up, and yeah, it turns out it was made by the same person. I wonder what they're up to nowadays. What? What? But yeah, that's an overview of the entire game. I didn't expect the intro and this overview section to be so short, but what can you do? The game is tiny. But let's go through the entire game. We start the game and get to the main menu. How exciting. There are difficulty settings here, but I have no idea what changing them does. The manual doesn't even say anything, and the stuff I tried on hard mode felt the same as on normal mode, or easy mode. Yeah, there's only easy and hard. That's annoying. Anyways, after that, we get this image of Shrek. His curiosity knows no bounds. The game then explains Shrek wanted to have a picnic with Fiona, but all the items for the picnic went missing, and now he has to go find them. That's the story. This doesn't really have to do anything with treasure, but alright. You get into the game and just take a look at this beauty. We can run around, jump, and walk. Those are the only controls in the entire game. However, before I get deeper into this, I need to bring something up that the viewer, you, may have noticed. The frame rate is fucking awful. It's hard to explain, but PlayStation games with bad frame rates have never really bothered me. In fact, they didn't even look strange. But the way the frame rate looks in this game is just really ugly and jarring, and it just doesn't look correct. I really can't explain it. Anyway, if you walk around for a bit, this game has its fair share of enemies. And guess what happens when you run into them? Lose a bit of life maybe? Nope. Absolutely nothing. Well, that's not true. Shrek falls down for a bit. But that's it. And it's not just for this enemy here. It's for every single enemy you see in the game, because there are a couple, which is impressive. What this means is every enemy in the game is irrelevant. Anyway, when you walk around a bit more, you may notice these collectibles around the map. You would think that this is at least an exploration-based game. They would maybe hide them in platforming sections and reward you for completing the section, or maybe hide them behind a puzzle or something like that. But no. Imagine a flat circle, and the collectibles are just in the circle and they're very easily obtained. That's it. That is every single collectible in the entire game, minus one. This is what I mean by this game has platforming elements, but it has failed in every single aspect of them. Enemies to get in your way? They do nothing. Jumping sections? No punishments for falling. Collectibles? In the open with no challenge to get them at all. They have failed in every single aspect, and it's even worse, because I explained how to control Shrek, but I never said how it actually feels to move around as him. Take a wild guess. Yeah, it's kinda bad. Well, actually, that's too nice. I legit think this might be one of the most poorly controlled 3D platformers I have ever played. It feels unfinished. Shrek controls like he is constantly on ice, and him running into a wall sometimes feels like you get ping-ponged off the walls. Every single thing you do as Shrek has a bit of a delay. If you want to move as him, it'll take a second for him to start up. If you jump, it'll take a second for him to actually jump up. Luckily though, because there's barely any platforming sections, this is actually fine. It's not really horrendous. There's a few platforming sections where you just need to jump from one platform to another, and if you miss, you just have to walk around. And because the way the game controls is kind of awful doing that, but it doesn't happen too much. Most of the game, like I said, is just an open flat circle. And because it's like this, the controls don't really matter. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not forgiving this game. It is unforgivable that your game controls bad. Normally, this is the part of the video where I would go through each level one at a time and let you know the differences between them. But there are about 10 sections in the world, each with their own collectibles. And other than the collectibles looking different, they do the exact same thing, unlock the minigames. And the 10 different sections or 10 different levels, they're pretty much the same. It's just a flat circle with collectibles you can easily get, minus one, which I'll go over later. Everything in this game looks the exact same. It's just different shades of green and maybe sometimes some cement. Due to this, I can't really go through the levels one at a time because the description I gave just now describes every single one of them. Oh, wait a minute. One of the levels that gives you spring shoes, which make you jump higher. This should be on the best platformer ever made. Okay, that's it for real. Wait, no, there's a power-up you can get which makes you invincible for a bit, meaning enemies won't knock you down. Yippee. Okay, that's it for real. What I can do is I can at least tell you about some of the collectibles you can get. They range from cheese, horseshoes, candy canes, and dwarves. Yeah, it's not even like the 7 dwarves. There's like 11. Luckily, I can actually give this game a positive. It has a map, which is actually useful. It tells you where you are and how many collectibles you have, as well as how many you have in each area. This is actually nice because if I didn't have this map, I would have gotten lost. Though luckily, the game does have these ginormous out-of-place signs that tell you where to go, so I mean, maybe I wouldn't have. I don't know, these signs are just so funny. Anyway, once you get all the collectibles in a level, you unlock the minigame. So what I can do for this video is I can go through the minigames one at a time, because I've pretty much talked about the platforming aspect of this game. Or have I? Let's start with the first minigame. Okay, wait, hold on a second. These loading screens, all the loading screens in the game look like this, but it takes on average 20 seconds for the game to load. You see them when you get into the game for the first time or if you go into a minigame. A loading screen like this is not great. It takes way too long. Anyway, yeah, the minigames. There's even a fishing minigame. The first one is that you need to grab 3 of the blind mice. This is pretty much just Simon Says. The buttons you need to push will light up in an order, and you just need to follow that order. Do it enough times, and you beat the minigame. Yeah, most of the minigames are pretty not exciting in this. Though take a look at this wicked cool CG cutscene when you win. Isn't that awesome? Minigame 2. Well, wait a minute. This is an actual platformer. This controls worse than the main game! So Shrek doesn't automatically run anymore. He now walks, and the walk button has been replaced by the run button, which is odd since the game has basically taught you, the player, that you automatically run all the time. But in this minigame, you don't, and it doesn't tell you that. It's just a simple platformer with moving platforms and chains you can grab onto. The goal here, like most platformers made, is get to the end. But like I said before, it feels very, very, very bad to control Shrek here compared to the main game, and the main game is already not great. It feels like the delay on his movement is even longer compared to the 3D section. It is atrocious. In fact, it just feels unresponsive at times. I honestly think this 2D platformer segment part minigame thing might actually be one of the worst controlling 2D platformers I have played on this channel. I'm not even kidding. I'm dead serious. It actually feels easier to control Shrek if you're constantly jumping around instead of walking or running around. But once you get to the end, the minigame is done. Also, if you die here, you just respawn a bit back, so it's not really a difficulty issue at all. The time limit doesn't even matter. Once I finished the minigame, I got back into the 3D platforming part, and I got to this part of the game where the background music stopped playing. This is my favorite video game genre, by the way. On to minigame 3. This feels like Mario Paint, the minigame where you swap flies, except instead of flies, it's worms. And instead of being Mario, it's Shrek. So it's nothing like it at all. Anyway, you move Shrek in a circle to aim the reticle and line it up with the worm and just slap it. Beat your worm. You just need to do this a few times and you win. Realistically, you can just hold down left on the D-pad and just mash the attack button and you'll probably beat the minigame. Minigame 4 is the exact same as minigame 3, except instead of smashing the floor, you're just whipping around a net, but it controls the exact same. The only difference is that instead of just smacking the ground randomly and winning, you now need to pray to the game, because these flies refuse to be caught. So what you have to do is you have to have your reticle near the flies that are flying around. You don't have to have it on them. Once it's near a fly enough, it'll turn red, auto lock on, and then you can capture it. So it's basically the same as the last minigame, except there's an anti-spam mechanic. Though the issue with this one is that sometimes the flies won't ever come near you and you just lose, which is what happened to me. Though you get a cool CG lose screen, which is cool, I guess. This is the only time I ever saw this. Once you capture enough flies, you win the game. On to minigame 5, you need to move around and jump on rats. Moving around is super slow and doesn't feel good at all. This minigame is actually horrendous to control. However, there's something you can do. If you jump on a rat, it'll get back up after 2 seconds again. So all you need to do is just keep jumping on a rat that keeps getting up over and over again and you win. It's very simple to cheese. Minigame 6 has you just aim a reticle at the knights that pop out of the castle. The reticle has heavy auto aim though. Once you get even slightly close to one of the knights, it just turns red and locks into the knight. So this game is really, really easy to do. Once the reticle locks on, you just throw a tomato at the knight. Do this enough times and you win. So far, we have gone through 6 minigames, and each of them took maybe a minute to beat. Some people may say that this isn't a platforming game, but it's a minigame collectathon or a party game, which is fair. But the minigames here are also nothing. There's not much of a party going on here. Moving on to minigame 7 though, it's a pain in the ass. The 7th minigame takes the longest because I believe it is poorly designed. It is a fishing minigame. You need to line up the reticle where the fish jump out from, indicated by this green circle. But moving the reticle is very slow, and it's not like it slowly moves when you want to move it. It moves in increments. So if you need to move it slightly to the left, it jumps to the left instead, making it a massive pain. Though once you line it up, push X to throw out your rod, and after a bit, a fish might grab on. If so, hold down on the D-pad and you get the fish. This is where the issues begin. There will be times randomly where you don't get a fish at all and just get something else instead, and this happens a lot, meaning you have to redo the entire fishing thing multiple times. It's just a massive time waster rather than a punishment for failing. Was this to maybe simulate real fishing? That's not what really fishing is like at all. I feel like they put the most effort into this minigame, as for one, I've been talking about this minigame the most, and 2, there are actually 3 different areas you can fish in. Once you get enough fish, it changes to the next area. But that's pretty much the entire thing. The new areas don't really do anything else. They just look different. Get enough fish and you're done. Though wait a second, sometimes Shrek will scratch his ass, which just makes you unable to control him for a bit. Why does he do that? Minigame 8 has you play tug of war with the Sleeping Beauty's body, which is like a legit 2-second scene from the movie. A couple of the minigames here are scenes from the movie as well, like the one with the blind mice, which also lasts like a few seconds in the movie too. It's bizarre. Why did you choose these? It's even more bizarre because I believe this game is supposed to take place after the movie, so why are you referencing the movie? Anyway, for minigame 8, you just need to push the D-pad directions when it gets into the circle. This will take a few attempts to start getting the timing down though, as this game is constantly lagging, and there's also like a 2-second delay on your button presses. But if you do it enough time, you push her far enough, I guess, and you win. The 9th minigame might be the worst minigame out of them all. It is a platformer again. So the bad controls from the previous minigame that I talked about that was also a platformer apply to this one as well. But not only that, there's just so much stuff in this platforming part you have to deal with all at once. If this platforming section was an actual game, like an actual full-fledged 2D platformer game, it would probably be one of the worst platformers ever made. Luckily, it's just one small part of this game. The ground is constantly crumbling here, so you need to be on the move, meaning you cannot be patient. However, the game also wants you to be patient at the same time, as there are fireballs coming out of the ground. So you're also forced to be patient because you have to wait for the fireballs to go off. To summarize, it's a fucking mess. The game is rushing you, and it's forcing you to be patient, which is incredibly frustrating. This part honestly feels extremely luck-based, as you need to pray you don't jump when a fireball comes at you. As if you decide to wait for the fireball to go past, you'll just die because the floor below you crumbles. Luckily, each screen of the platforming part here is small, so you just get sent back to the start, which isn't really that big of a time loss. However, there is yet another issue. Before I said it's easier to control Shrek in the previous minigame by just jumping all the time instead. That in the previous minigame felt optional. In this one, it feels required, as there are a lot of tiny holes in the ground which if you walk over, Shrek can just fall into, and it's impossible to tell which one is what. I don't even think this was intentional. This doesn't feel complete. Anyway, after a bit of frustration, that is the minigame. So far, we are at 9 minigames. The last world requires us to collect keys, which is one of the collectibles in the game. But this one's a bit different. This game still has an area where you can collect most of the keys, but if you collect them all in this area, there are still probably going to be a couple missing. With some of the minigames before, once you beat them, they unlock a platform or path that allows you to get a key from. So if you don't know this is a thing, you'll need to do what I had to do and run around the entire world multiple times to find one key that you missed because you didn't know this mechanic exists, which is annoying. Luckily, the game world is kind of small. You remember when the subject of this video was about a platformer? But once you get all the keys, you get the final minigame, another platforming segment. Though this one isn't as bad as the previous one though. You need to get all the armor pieces. They are all pretty easy to get. I didn't miss any, so I don't know what happens if you do miss them, but there's nothing new in this part either. Well, I guess the dragon here for a bit is kind of a scary model, but what can you do? The dragon will breathe fire and fireballs at you, and you just need to avoid them. Simple platforming stuff. The only other new thing is this bright red light. You can't touch it or you die. But the hurt box feels larger than it should. I swear I'm making this jump, but nope, I guess I'll die. Though, once you beat this part of the minigame, you get a final CG cutscene and the game has been beat. I think it took longer to write this script than beat the game, because this might be mysterious to some of you new folk, but I don't use AI to write my script. I use my incredibly tiny brain. So what did I think of Shrek Treasure Hunt, or Shrek's Treasure Hunt? Why did they do that? Well, do I think this game is a platformer? I guess. I think it is. It failed at every aspect of it, but I still think it's kind of a platformer. Do you think it's a platformer? Well, if not, let's say this game is a minigame collection then. I mean, I guess it is, but it sucks at that part too, and it doesn't really feel like it is at all. They're just all so basic and boring, and it's not even exciting to play. I don't even know if I'd call this a party game either because of how brain dead this is. I think the best thing I can call this game is a Shrek game. Though I think that's rude as well because Shrek Super Slam is awesome. But what are my thoughts on this game? I feel like this game is a medical procedure. What the hell am I talking about? It might be painful, but it'll be over quick, depending on the medical procedure. Like if you get a needle, like if you get shot in the arm, then that'll hurt for a second and then it won't. That's kind of what this game feels like. That's not really a medical procedure though. That's like getting a needle for something. What am I talking about? That's what this game feels like. It sucks. It is not a good game. It might even be one of the worst platformers ever made. However, because it's so short, it's not that miserable. And while I was complaining about the platforming minigames not being that great, the other minigames that are more simple function. Like, they don't not work, they do work. So anyway, that's my thoughts on Shrek's Treasure Hunt. If you enjoyed watching, please consider subscribing. If you want to watch me say more stupid things on a different website, I have a Twitter account @OrinClubs. Thanks for watching.